So I want to do a quick comparison of the EB70 to the EB70S. As you may know, these units are pretty darn near identical. Only the difference I can tell is that this one has an 800 watt inverter versus the 700 watt inverter of the EB70. Even the model number and stuff on the back is identical. There's no real way of telling this is an EB70S, except the fact that it's an EB70 with 800 watts. So this is a 220 watt Dokyo panel. I'm going to do a solar test right now because one thing I noticed when I first got the EB70 was that compared to the AC50, the Mppt tracking was much slower. Whereas my AC50 would take 30 seconds or so to get to the maximum power and kind of stabilize, the EB70 would take a few minutes, such that I would get bored before I got there, so I'm not exactly sure how long it would take. So 220 watt Dokyo, let's see what we get. Okay, 7 seconds to start showing wattage. Twenty seconds in, it's showing 60 watts. $73 watts at 35 seconds. Okay, so I guess 75 is what's going to get. Even though the sun is clear right now, the clouds went away finally. 77. Obviously, this is not the ideal orientation, but this thing should be able to get about 120-ish. $78. I'm going to give it a 2-minute mark, and then I'm going to switch panels. I'll switch to the EB70S. 82. Now, obviously, there's a lot of factors in Mppt tracking, but in general, it shouldn't take very long to get there. 81 watts. 84 watts. And you see, pretty clear sky. Okay, 2-minute mark. Here we go. Okay, starting off higher. So we're already going higher. So interestingly, now I just expected there to be a speed difference. Now this might be related to the speed. Like I said, it seemed that in the past the EB70 would get up to the proper wattage. It just took forever to get there. In the grand scheme of things, Mppt speed shouldn't make a big difference in how much power you get. It just takes a few minutes to get there as long as it stays there. But it could be indicative of another underlying hardware change. Even though the input rating seems to be the same amperage, same voltage, it might technically still be different hardware. So interestingly note is that, after about 20-some odd seconds, it got to 96 and stayed there. It hasn't budged. All right, the 2-minute mark, and now I'll switch back over and see what happens. There we go. Okay. So it's interesting to see that for some reason this thing is just slower. And the reason I'm doing this test is because I find it interesting because, you know, with the recent information about the Milene power station having a weird kind of faulty solar input, I think maybe besides just voltage, amperage, it might be interesting to see if Mppt speed is a valid indicator of quality. You know, perhaps on a cloudy day, this might make a difference. It's definitely important that it's still sitting here at a minute. We're still 20 watts lower. Down. Down, dogs. Okay, once I hit the 2 minute mark again, I'm going to go back over. We're at a minute 25, 80 watts. Actually, I'll give it 3 minutes this time, just to see. Should have my gimbal. See, my arm is shaking a bit. This is interesting because this is something I hadn't recalled seeing. And this is my actual second EB70 actually, because my first EB70, I complained about the fact I couldn't get the proper amperage or wattage out of the AC inverter, so they replaced it. And then the replacement did slightly better, but with the heat gun, I could never get anywhere near 700 watts. But some of the heat gun might be part of the problem. You know, Hobotech calls them solar degenerators, and that might be valid because I found a space heater that gets 650 watts, no problem. So, okay, there we go. So, it's almost at 3 minutes. And it's almost finally up to where the other one got in about 30 seconds. I mean, it's just, you know, 20 watt minutes lost. It's still something though. Like I said, if you have a up and down day, you know, sun comes out, goes away, maybe you lose some significant power over the course of the day. That's something I would need to test. All right, so we're at 3 minutes, 3 minutes 20. Now swap back. See, just 15, 20 seconds. It's already there. So, I guess that's something the EB70 actually can do. The EB70 actually is better in one way, so that's impressive. Or it's more so that the EB70 was a more flawed unit, so they must have rushed out to market, didn't test the inverter properly, didn't test the solar tracking very well. So the EB70S is a kind of a, you can almost call the S a silent update, silent upgrade without admitting the problems in the other units. Now, one of the complaints myself and others had was that the lights are very low on this. So it looks a little brighter on camera than it does in person. But there's been a few instances where I've had lights on and not realized it and forgot to turn them off. So let's see. Let's see if you can tell in the video. It is definitely a brighter LED. I think you can tell in the video. So the LED is slightly brighter. That one, not so much. But that is a small improvement, so it's feeling like a kind of a silent change where they just source it a little bit better. Maybe the covering over the LED is thinner. Maybe they use a slightly different material. That's not like it's more likely it's thinner. Or it could be a brighter LED. Or it could be a shallower optic plastic channel. So that's a small change. Okay, so now let's simulate the 200 watt Bluetti solar panel. So one of the problems with this unit is it has an 8 amp maximum, but Bluetti's own 200 watt panel is 20.5 volts, 9.7 amps. So this thing shouldn't be able to get the maximum wattage out of a 20.5 volt panel. So I have my power supply set to 20.5 volts, 9.7 amps. Let's go ahead and see what I get. Where is that plug? Okay, so on the EB70, let's see what we get. So 150 watts because it seems to be limited to 7.74 amps. So that was one of the problems I didn't like with the EB70. Now let's see if the EB70S is any better. Looks like there is a slight but not significant improvement. Looks like we're getting 7.9 amps, so slightly better. But at the end of the day, it's just closer to the actual rating. So that has not changed. Now to show you why I call this a silent update. So on the EB70, you see it says power station EB70, 716 watt hours, 8 amps, blah, 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 700 watt total inverter. Everything else pretty much the same. Then we move up to the AC EB70. Look at that. EB70, 716 watts, but 800 watts. So we have 700 watts EB70, 800 watts EB70. So I call it a silent update because there's almost no changes. Other than adding the temperature stuff to it and changing the wattage and the Mppt tracker being slightly different, but not higher amperage. I call it a silent update because they didn't even bother to change the model name. If you check the box, when they first sent it to me, I thought it was a mistake. I thought they sent me an old unit. But no, this is an EB70S as evidenced by the higher wattage on the AC inverter, but beyond that, it's not a whole lot of changes, and it's more like they just improved it because the EB70 was a flawed unit. That's my suspicion. That's confirmed by the fact they didn't change a whole lot, didn't bother to change the model number, so this is more like an EB70 revision 1.1 than a full-blown change. So if you got this far, I appreciate you taking time to watch my video. I know it's not an exciting video, it's not an exciting change, but it's good to know when they create a new model, whether Bluetti really created a new model or if they're just kind of making it up. So Bluetti is definitely an iterative company. They like to make small changes, going back and forth. And yeah, that's about it.